This nice backplane from StarTech has just arrived, and I'm going to be opening it. I'm very sorry, I have actually misplaced my tripod, so you'll have to live with the shaky handheld camera for now. But in the box here, well, first of all, let me just explain what this is. So it allows me to put 4 2.5-inch 15mm tall drives in a single 5.25 bay, which is great for RAID arrays. So this would be good for like a home media server or that sort of thing. Here's your instructions, probably don't need those. Comes with screws and the keys. Now it's really good that you can lock this so that you don't accidentally pull a drive out, especially if it's in a RAID array. Here it comes with some SATA cables, which is nice. And wow, that is solidly built. So here we have SATA to Molex, not Molex to SATA, because it actually takes dual Molex power. And that's actually really convenient because my workstation has 2 of those free. Molex is still the popular choice on SAS docks because, you know, if you're working with SAS, you probably don't have a free SATA power connector. So Molex is still popular in servers and high-end workstations. Wow. This is a very solid metal unit. Like, the whole unit is just metal. Here we have our 2 nice little cooling fans. These could be replaced if needed. There's our dual Molex power and, of course, our quad SAS. Wow. Yeah, so this is... I'm impressed with the quality of this unit. Here we can slide our drive caddies out. They're built very similarly to server drive caddies, which makes a lot of sense. This is basically server hardware at this point. So yeah, let's get the drives in and get it installed. I am using 4 146GB 15,000 RPM drives from HP. These are some of the fastest hard drives out there. They're by far the fastest I've ever tested, and 4 of them in RAID through a proper HBA, through a proper hardware controller, should give us ridiculously fast speeds, faster than a SATA SSD even. So yeah, let's get these all in. Okay, so a few minutes later, I now have all the drives in caddies, and in here, it's very hard to see, but we've just got an SAS connector, a capacitor, and then the power for the fan. So it's all pretty simple down in there. So now it's time to just start slotting them in, and they do have a very nice, satisfying click. So now this thing is a good, like, 6 pounds. Now that it's full of all the drive, not 6 pounds, I'm exaggerating a little, but it's several pounds. So we're going to go ahead and use the key to lock all of our drives in place. I've tested all 4 of these, and they all work, and they all seem to be some of the best condition samples that I have for these drives. So, you know, I should get this behemoth installed so I can actually test it out. Well, it's all installed in the front, but there's a slight issue. There are so many cables here that it's actually starting to become an issue of airflow for my GPU, because of course the big intake fans are right here, but those are like totally blocked by this mass of SAS cables and power cables all running up to the top. So I'm gonna figure out a better solution to that, but for now, let's see if it works. I just finished creating a virtual disk in my BIOS. So I'm going to exit our BIOS, and well, first I'm gonna look at our RAID controller disks. So yeah, we have 2 virtual disks, 7 physical disks, and yeah, we're all good to go there.
Well, I've finished installing and setting up our RAID array,
And now it's time to check out its performance. Now the final size is 583 gigabytes. Now I have copied some files to it, but that won't affect the performance of these tests because they just read straight from the disk. And it's very loud. I'll probably include some clips of sound. It's incredibly loud and I love that. And we're getting a crazy speed. Let me just pull up another window so I can compare it. And for comparison, I'll run it on my other RAID array comprised of three 7200 RPM Hitachi Ultrastars. And my RAID controller is powerful enough so that there isn't a significant reduction when I'm running tests on two SAS arrays at the same time. So we can see it's well over twice the performance of three 7200 RPM drives, and that makes sense. Each of these drives is, significantly faster than your average 7200 RPM drive, even a 7K server drive. So I'm not even going to let that finish, I'll just cut it off there. We'll go ahead and run our extra tests on the on both drives here. And of course, it's significantly faster over here on the left. This one's already testing the cache, which is 250 megabytes a second, by the way. And this one hasn't even, well, when I started talking, it hadn't even started, doing those tests. The cache speed on the 15K drives is about the same as the 7K drives, because these drives have quite a lot of cache. I'll also pull up another so that I can run it on the other RAID array that is, half full. So not a super fair comparison, but I will do some more benchmarks in a second that are less based on space. Because the way Crystal Disk Mark works is it writes a file and then it reads from it, so it's very dependent on how full your drive is. HD Tune Pro just reads from the raw sectors on the disk and measures access times, so it doesn't matter how much data you have on the disk. Now our 7K array actually does win in burst rate, but in every other test, the four 15,000 RPM drives really do pull ahead. I'll go ahead and run a benchmark on both of them. And we're seeing in this sequential test, they are about the same, even though this one is consistently about 30-ish megabytes a second faster than the 7200 RPM array. We don't quite need to finish that test because it is Crystal Disk Mark time, and we'll get similar, in fact, even better results from this. And we can see that these are 4 hard drives that beat the SATA SSD. Like, the maximum speed a SATA SSD can read at is 600 megabytes a second, because that is the cap for the SATA 3 interface. And 4 Spinning Rust hard drives actually managed to beat that by 33%, which is pretty impressive. I mean, it's just wonderful seeing this speed from a hard drive, and that is why I wanted this as a video editing scratch disk. It is faster than the SATA SSD I was previously using. I'll pull up another window and compare a SATA SSD. It's a reasonably full SATA SSD, but it'll still give us a comparison. I'll also do my boot NVMe and another NVMe that I have. Where is it? I'm sorry, I have too many drives. So we can see this SATA SSD only reads at 545 megabytes per second, so that really is an easy win for the hard drive array. And 13 megabyte per second sequentials, randoms on hard drives is pretty much unheard of. Now our 7K RAID array does get 5, which is still rather good, but due to the tiny platters of the 15,000 RPM drives, they are significantly faster. Of course, our SSDs, which are in this row down here, are getting much faster random times, which are the bottom 2 rows,
than the hard drives, and that's because even though they lose, or at least the SATA one does, in sequentials, there are no moving parts in an SSD. The head doesn't have to be positioned to do randoms, which that makes them faster. Down here, this is my Gen 2 NVMe. It's a Gen 2x2, and this is a Gen 3x4 NVMe. This is my boot drive, and that is another NVMe that I have. Neither of them are, you know, to the limit where they start getting significantly slower. But this SATA SSD really does get clapped in every regard by this hard drive array, which is impressive. In fact, it's somewhat close to my storage array for like files and games, which is this big 6 terabyte volume comprised of 3 drives. And I will wrap up here. I just want to talk about these results, finally. The random write, because that is insanely fast. 17.6 and respectively 15.4 megabytes per second for a hard drive random is, well, that's just absolutely insane. So now that I've finished talking about the drives, I will quickly cover the enclosure. It's very nice. I can't directly monitor temps from SAS drives, because that's just how they are. But I don't feel them getting particularly hot, and I actually took one out after I shut the computer off after doing 20 minutes of sustained heavy writing, and the drive, it was hot to the touch obviously, but it wasn't dangerously hot feeling. And the 2 fans in the back of the enclosure definitely help regulate that. They're not too loud. In fact, I can't even hear them over the racket that the drives make. The spindle noise from 4 15,000 RPM drives is pretty loud, but they don't vibrate much because the noise dampening in that enclosure is quite good. So it's definitely worth the like $100 if you're looking for a good, high-quality enclosure to mount 4 server drives in your workstation. So overall, this is a, you know, it's an 11 out of 10 project. I can get my videos edited much easier, you know, all the stuff for it worked flawlessly, and I absolutely have no complaints. So that is where I'm going to wrap up this video on that positive note. Thank you everyone for watching, and I